everyone, welcome back to Flying Solo with Kat, and today is kind of a fun video, and I decided let's just go with it because I didn't really have any ideas for this week. I know I've kind of been waiting for Skeleton Crew to come out because I do want to talk about that. I know I need to talk um, about some other things as well. I've already done the Lego Halloween series, so I want to do something Halloween themed. If y'all have any ideas, leave them in the comments because I don't know. I might talk about syndicates or maybe Book of Boba Fett. That might be a fun Halloween series to talk about because I haven't talked about it on here. It's one of my favorites. So let me know if you have anything in the comments that you want me to talk about. But today, I want to talk about writing. I'm going to talk about fan fiction mainly, but writing for the Star Wars fandom. That's how we're going to bring Star Wars kind of into it. If you're not big into fan fiction or big into writing, I'd say this video is probably not for you. I'm going to talk about also fandom discourse and, if you want how to start, if you want to start, and what websites I use. So if you are interested, sit back, relax, and enjoy. And if you're not, it's okay. You're not really missing anything. Next week will probably be a more character-driven episode, or I think I probably will talk about Book of Boba Fett. So thank you all for being here. Love you all, especially for the support that I've gotten on the last two videos. You guys are amazing. But sit back, relax, and enjoy. So, I have been writing for the Star Wars fandom since 2020. I had written for mainly game fandoms years before that. I mainly wrote for Overwatch. That was kind of my start into the fandom writing world. Then I moved over to Apex for probably about a good year and a half. And that is where I actually started uploading my work on public websites. Unfortunately, I used Wattpad, which a lot of writers and people in the fandom probably know. It's an app that you could post your own stories. It's very teenified, if I don't know, I just made up that word. It's used mainly by younger audiences. It's personally, I don't like it because you get ads shoved in your face every single time you flip a chapter, and a lot of these chapters are short, especially for some of the stuff that I write. Um, if you only have 500 words a chapter and you get an ad, that's like a 45-second ad, you are wasting an hour of your time reading maybe 5 chapters. That math probably didn't make sense, but it's annoying and it's not fun and it's more work than needed. And a lot of times it's a lot of younger writers that are just kind of sinking their teeth into writing and the fandom as a whole. Not that that's a bad thing. I started there, and I don't mind talking about it. Some people just will refuse to talk about the app, and I think there's some beauty in the pain that you see with Wattpad. But I started uploading in 2020 on Wattpad, and of course started writing for Kylux, which I have talked on this channel about way too much, and I do apologize. But they're what got me into the Star Wars fandom, so I do owe them some credit. But I started this 26 chapter fic that took me about a year, and I started it right after someone very close to me passed away, and I wanted to get into writing, not about my life because I hate journaling. I don't like doing that, but I wanted to create a story trying to make myself feel it a little bit better. And that diverged into this 26 chapter fic with major characters, storylines, character deaths. It was pretty dramatic. I still go back to it and read it from time to time because it's still so special to me. It shows where I was in the Star Wars fandom. I did not know anything. I didn't even know what I think Bacta was at the time, which is really funny because there are definitely some areas where I'm like, why didn't I just say Bacta? Like, what was I doing? But with that fic, I learned so much about Star Wars, and I watched the movies and rewatched the movies, watched videos talking about it. That's where I was introduced to Star Wars Explained. So with this writing, with this fic, um, it was really the start of my Star Wars journey. Um, I would recommend not going to search for it because it is kind of a mess. I've thought about putting it on the website that I use now, but I don't know if I want to do that or not. There's definitely some issues with it, and it's something that I've kind of just wanted to leave on Wattpad as my little final goodbye. But it did get 2,000 views, which I don't know if that's much. But as someone who had not written in the Star Wars fandom before, was writing for a smaller fandom or sub fandom, a smaller ship, I was shocked at how many people were coming back and reading and leaving really, really nice comments. So that was my start. And after that, I was just like, let's just get into it. Funny enough, I have built my following. Well, it's not really funny, it's kind of how the internet works, which is crazy. I've built my following over since 2020, so almost 5 years. Oh, God, that feels weird to say. But I have not always been, I don't want to say as big because there's so many people that are bigger than me in our little small fandom that have thousands of, followers, and I just have 180 right now. Get me to 200, by the way. I would love that. Um but I didn't start really posting till probably 2 years ago. And then after that, I didn't even really start posting for content probably till a year ago and actually taking it seriously and being someone in the fandom. And even then, I feel almost some imposter syndrome with that, which is something I've had to work through with being online and talking with other people in the fandom. Because there's sometimes that I, you're not included on everything, and you feel as if, like, oh, why didn't I come up with that first? Like, that would have been so good. And my whole thing, and I have to realize it's a fandom of all collective. It's a collective, and we're a family, right? So we have to always work together, and it's not always, okay, who posts it first and who's better. And that's been a kind of a hard thing for me to see overall in fandom and in writing as well. When you're, who's getting views on what fix? Will people write like what you write? And will they connect with it? And that's the scary part. So going back to writing for the Star Wars fandom, I studied the movies. I started this major infatuation with Star Wars. I don't know how that happened, but I started to write more. I started to become part of community kind of events. My first event was the Make Kylux suffer event, which I really liked. I'm big on angst, I'm big on drama, and I was like, okay, we're gonna do this. We're going to post it, upload it. That was kind of the first time I posted on my Twitter as well. Actually, like, tweeted out that, hey, I'm doing this thing, would love if you could read it. And the amount of comments were just amazing. I stopped using Wattpad probably after that because I realized I was only reaching a certain group with my fix. There's not a lot of people that are going to go out and read on Wattpad, which, granted, I wouldn't either. I would support people in the fandom, but, like, let's go ahead and get on AO3. So what is AO3? Archives of Our Own. If y'all do not know, it is a public, free-to-use website that basically has not even thousands, millions of different fics that some are most are public, some are private, that you can use a search engine that they have that narrows it down to fics that you want to read, what type of tags you want, the maturity level of it, and your warnings. And what I like about AO3 is that everything is permitted, which I know in fandoms and the outside world, that seems like, okay, maybe that is too much power to the writers, and there needs to be regulations. But for me, it's beautiful. You have this family, this community that is putting out their heart and soul in the most disgusting and beautiful ways. And people don't see it like that. And that's the only way I can see it, because there's some things where I'm like, how the hell could you come up with this? It is disgustingly beautiful, and I'm totally here for it. And then there's other things that I have read and have just bawled my eyes out and cried because of that connection to the writing. One of my own fics that I wrote about a couple months ago, it was based on the Hux Tross concept art, where it was him stabbing himself with Kylo's lightsaber. And I wrote a very quick piece on that. And I had never gotten emotional when writing these types of fics. Normally, I try to keep it angsty but happy enough. And that I just started writing, and then I realized I was crying. And that might be cringy to some people or not be able to connect with that, but it was like the moment where I was like, oh my God, like this actually might speak to someone. And I definitely drew a lot of the self hatred, the self infliction from myself, and put it on to poor Hux. I'm so sorry. You deserved it, but like these characters, I'm able to bring out so much story with that. And with Star Wars, I mean, you think of how many characters there are and how many different stories you could write. What I love about Archives of Our Own, and even as a writer, there's no rules. You can write whatever the hell you want and post it, and I promise you someone will like it. I have written things that I am not proud of. There are currently a couple of fics up on my website that I'm like, who the hell wrote this? What is going on? What are the motivations? Um, and my messiest fics are my most liked. I don't know how I feel about that. And not by a long shot. It's not like it's really, really light compared to my others, but it makes me wonder, like, okay, wait, like this has a purpose. And I've read so many other, mainly Star Wars fics and written pieces that talk about the prequels, OT, Rebels, where I've read a Rogue One, um, Solo. I'm actually currently working on a Solo AU, which is really fun. Everything that I write is Star Wars, and each time and read, but each fic that I write, I learn so much more about this universe. Um, and it's partly what keeps me in, is being able to express myself through that writing, but as well as I'm not the best writer. I do not want to be a director. I do not want to write a script for a movie. And I know I'm not good enough for that. Like, not even self-deprecate. Like, please do not give me that job, because it will turn out a disaster. Um, but that's what I love about AO3 and love about the Star Wars fandom, is that it's just so much fun. And you could just put whatever ideas you have out there, and people will like it either way. That's kind of the difference between people that write and then people that are like, well, no, I could have written this better or whatever. Like, there are some people that do view it that way, but mainly most of the Star Wars fandom just does it because they love these characters and because they want to tell a certain story. Not that it's a better story than what was produced, just that it's a story that, hey, you might like it a little bit better than what was produced. Not that it is better, but it's there for you. So I think that's why fan fiction gets a little bit stigmatized, just because it is still a little bit taboo. And we as writers, I don't want to speak for everyone, but for myself, I do not view myself as a better writer than J.J. Abrams, Ryan Johnson, Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau. I don't, or George Lucas. Well, a little bit maybe. But I don't. I really don't. My stories are a mess, but they're a labor of love. And when I watch new Star Wars, like The Acolyte, and after I see that, even though it wasn't my favorite project, I came back to that and I said, that is a great story. Why don't I write something close to that? And I did that. And to me, that's fun. Star Wars is always providing, and there's always characters to explore that I can kind of take a deep dive in and look at. And for me, that's what fandom is all about, and it's what writing is about. Now, I used to hate writing. I used to hate reading. I'm not a big reader. Many of you who were following of the Light of the Jedi audiobook series, yeah, I know that has stopped for a little bit. I'm still working on it, so I promise I'll get back to it. I promise. But so reading, I'm not a big thing, but writing, there's just something about it that you can express yourself in such a different way. And with Star Wars, especially, is something that's really special. So I don't know. I don't know what I really wanted for this video. I mean, I just wanted, I think, to talk about writing and like my process, which I didn't really talk about, I guess. Um, for my process of writing, it's kind of a mix of two things. If I have an event, I take those prompts, normally like their words or a saying, and I influence that in the fic. So first I start out normally with a piece of paper. I am very traditional in that sense. I will always go back to paper and pen. For me, it's just easier to get the very, very rough draft onto a piece of paper, and then from there, I finish it up and I go ahead and transfer it onto a Google Docs, um, or Word, whichever one you want to use. And for me, that's my process of, okay, well, is there a better way I could write that from where I'm reading it? And a lot of times I won't even look at the book for my paper for 30 minutes after writing one sentence that I already had, because my brain just continues on and flows. And that's so freaking cool. Um, and something that I've just found that I've loved. It's the fluidness, yeah, of the writing. I think that's a word. I'm just making up words. Says the writer. I don't know. That's also another thing too. It's like I feel half the time I am making up words and am not writing correctly, and then I read it. I'm like, yeah, no, that sounds a-okay. It's not much more I could do there. So from then, after I proofread, do all of that stuff, I copy and paste it onto the website. I make sure to tag specifically. That's another thing too, is what I love about AO3 is the tags. Basically, I can kind of get a really quick synopsis of the story. Who was what? Where are we? All of that, because sometimes descriptions, I mean, I love y'all, but sometimes your descriptions are terrible, which is okay. If you tag correctly, then I already kind of know what your story's about, but it doesn't spoil you. If there's a tag that sometimes triggers you, you're not really into, what I love about AO3 is you could skip it. There is nothing at all that will make you click on it and view the content that you don't want to, and that's what I love. Being able to tag and being able to tell people and for people to tell me what their fic is about and if it interests me or not. And some days I'll skip a tag and then I'll come back to it a few days later and I'll go back and read it, because we're all in different moods at different times. Sometimes I really need some angst and really need someone to die. And other times I need some happy-go-lucky times because actual Star Wars universe is struggling, and I need some we call it fix it fix, where it rewrites kind of what happened in canon. And that's kind of it. And then I upload it, and I normally get amazing comments and people who are super supportive, which I love. Now, these are not canon, of course. I mean, I would love to send all my work to Lucasfilm for them to review it and see if they're going to put it through, but I'm pretty sure Dave Filoni would probably throw it in the trash. So, it's hard for me to differentiate canon versus non-canon. Now, what I write is very much non-canon unless something happens in the future, which again, Mr. Star Wars, I'm not totally against. Let's make a couple people a little fruity. But realistically, Star Wars is still a very contained universe and a very real universe. And even simplistic things like home planets, how they grew up, I still majorly kind of have a hard time to differentiate what is canon, what's non-canon. I brought it up about Kylo Ren in a couple of videos ago that I had canoned Kylo, Leia and Han kind of being bad parents, right? How when I read them in non-canon material, a lot of people pose them as not great parents, not attentive, not really that great, right? And then we see in the actual canon material, which I know Lego's not canon, but hey, it's what we have to go off of, where Leia and Han are trying to reach out to Ben and kind of be there with him and take him on, adventures as much as they can, and he's just not kind of having it. Again, I don't really care for how Lego portrays Ben Solo and Kylo Ren. I know Lego is kind of out there as it is when it comes to characters, and they try to kind of skew it a little bit, but considering this is the only thing that we have to go off of Ben Solo, Kylo Ren, it does sadden me a little bit because I know there's story there, and I know there is a reason why he felt like Han and Leia didn't love him. But we got no canon material. So I'm getting all of that information from non-canon stuff. And that can kind of lead me down to rabbit holes to where I start believing what I'm reading with non-canon material. And that can sometimes not be great for me, especially when I need to go on episodes like this and talk about characters and places and planets and kind of get my opinion on those because like the Outlaws video, I brought up Tarkin and I'm very into Imperials, and then I remembered, wait, no, Tarkin's not alive. For some reason I thought he was alive. We have to go back. He's not alive. Again with the Rogue One, I believe I mentioned Krennic as well. I had read something where Krennic was alive and he actually defected against the rebellion. It was actually really good, kind of a character analysis I saw on Twitter. But that didn't happen. I'm pretty sure he died. He's very much dead. So I had to be like, wait, no, he's not alive. He would be dead because he died at the Battle of Scarif. So you have to be so careful when writing and talking about these things because you can totally get them confused. But that should not stop you from going on Archives of Our Own, reading some amazing fan fiction. You into prequels? We got the prequel stuff. You into OT? We got the OT stuff. High Republic? Boom, we got it, especially with the Acolyte. There's so many of those. You like Knights of the Old Republic? Boom, we got that. Sequel trilogy? Yes, of course. And then of course we got your ships. But not all of it is relationships, and some of my favorites are the Rogue One stuff and the Rebels, to where they're just kind of doing, it's almost like extra episodes that you get, especially for Rogue One. You have stuff between Cassian, Bodhi, Jin, and they're just talking. They're just talking about the Empire, and especially after Andor came out, there were so many things about Cassian and kind of his inner monologue, and people put their hearts and souls into that. So it's like you're getting an extra episode of Andor, an extra episode of Star Wars Rebels. So if you're still with me after this, I'm so sorry. But long story short, I love writing for the Star Wars fandom. If you have kind of been on the fence of writing for it, just do it. What are you waiting for? This fandom is so supportive, and I promise you, you will only get better as time goes on. But anyway, y'all, thank you so much for listening. I know this was kind of an out there video, but I think next week's gonna be Book of Boba Fett. So don't hold me to that because I feel like I will probably forget. But I do think we're gonna talk about Book of Boba Fett. So anyway, y'all, thank you so much for listening.